What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, and welcome back to another Geeks Vegas Lines, NFL betting lines, and daily fantasy football breakdown show. This is week 13, and we are sponsored by Fantasy Draft, the home of rake-free fantasy sports, and Overlay DFS, the home of progressive jackpot contests with the start-sit format. And we are back to break down the main slate for the week 13, not the Thanksgiving slate. That's already done. Check out the videos. Click on DFS Army. Check out the video. We got a Players Club podcast breaking specifically down the Turkey Day slate. This one's covering the main slate. A lot of games, a lot of exciting games, a complete difference from week 12. We got like action, excitement, all of that going on. Lots of games to choose from, lots of great stacks. I am back. My name is Kevin Allen, and I've got my man, John Alessia, a.k.a. Statsational, with me, the sports betting GOAT himself. What's up, John?
What's going on, man? I'm celebrating the anniversary of Rocky IV open today. If you saw that, ESPN tweeted that out.
Is that
incorrectly, by the way, incorrectly saying that the fight was today. The fight was not today. The fight was, as you know, on Christmas Day when Rocky beat Drago, but the release was today.
We were having a debate. Was Rocky IV the greatest of the Rockies? I could make an argument.
Not a question. It's the Michael Jordan of the series, and then you discuss everything else.
I think if you look in historical terms, it ended the Cold War, so you'd have to put it as probably the number one. But the original Rocky is still one of the greatest.
The original Rocky was awesome, but I think Rocky IV. I mean, we can all agree Rocky III was pretty brutal.
Great!
It had Hulk Hogan in it,
and Mr. T
and Mr. T. But I mean, it almost jumped the shark, and then it came back. What was Hulk Hogan's name in Rocky III?
Thunderlips.
Yeah, Thunderlips. That's right. I gotta love it. And all right, getting back to it, I've got my man Season Long Says here as well, with like the Encyclopedia Footballica. It's all up in that noggin, that shiny noggin.
Hey, listen, when you have a head like this, it's made for a shaved head. You know, I could have
very shiny.
When I could have had one of those misshapen heads, and then I'd be wearing a toupee right now.
Man, if I had my head shaved like that, I'd look like a hard-boiled egg, man, walking around. I'd just be like,
it's just this light I have above me. I'm trying to find the perfect lighting, and I realize when you have a mug like this, no lighting works.
All right, so real quick, just to talk about the slate. Last week was brutal. There was one game with a 50-point total. Every other game was like 36 points or less. It was ridiculous. It was very difficult to make lineups, and it was also very clear, and of course I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was also very clear who everybody was going to play. We've got a little bit of a better slate this week, John, where you've got a few games with some juicy goodness.
Yeah, we could bounce around here this week and play like we talked about last week. I was mentioning on that Wolfpack podcast. Yeah, like you said, there was one or two games that everyone was going to like, and then it was a matter of really having to dig deep and look around. This week, we're going to spread out. I would imagine there's going to be a lot more playable stacks this week.
Yeah, well, not crazy, by the way. Not crazy, a ton of them, but there are more of them, a lot more, certainly.
Yeah, the game that I wanted to start with, and I know you're going to laugh, but I think there's actually, and this is just from my novice DFS eyes. I really like the Washington at Carolina game, and don't laugh. Even with Carolina laying the full 10 and the total drop from 40 to 39.5, I still think that DJ Moore is still underpriced on all of the DFS sites. John, first, before we get there, talk me through the betting angles. Washington, Carolina was now viewed as a good team after being viewed as a bad team. They're like on a roller coaster here. What do the bettors think?
So, yeah, the bettors are going to shy away from Washington. I don't think the win last week against Detroit is going to give them any street cred here. So, Carolina is getting the action, 73% of the money, similar on the ticket sizes. The total, which I believe, it's not the lowest total, although it might be the lowest total in the main slate or close to it, at 39, is getting a ton of money here on the under. So yeah, people are not expecting a lot going on here. I personally, in a season-long league that I moved into first, that yardage league that everyone hated, I talked about, I got the Carolina defense going. I'm hoping this is like a 7-6 game or something like that. But yeah, the market is not buying into not buying into the Washington winning one game. That's for sure. Carolina, You play well against New Orleans and you get a little bit of credibility in the market. But I mean, this New Orleans team against, the last few weeks here since Breeze has been back hasn't looked all that great. So, interesting matchup. I don't know how much we love it in DFS. The Geek will break that down for us.
Hey, Geek, McCaffrey, it doesn't matter what the total is or who they're playing. I mean, 2 weeks ago, the Panthers scored 3 points and McCaffrey still had 30 fantasy points. At this point, I don't even care what the price is. He's the first guy I try to lock into my lineup. Him and DJ Moore, both live plays this week.
DJ Moore, I read, led my King of the Beach team to that 14th place finish. That was the play. And the reason I used him was because Moore is just good for between 8 to 14 targets every single week in this offense, no matter what is going on, regardless of the matchup. But more importantly, Christian McCaffrey, if you're not playing, why is he not in your lineup? Why? You don't like 30 fantasy points? You're allergic to winning? Play this guy every week, no matter what. This is a great situation, great matchup. If you watch the Panthers games, Allen only has eyes for Christian McCaffrey. He's always looking for him in the pass. And the thing, he's like reluctantly throwing to DJ Moore. He's got to throw to someone else. The reason Moore gets so many targets is because they don't have a tight end that they throw to frequently. They don't have another, even Curtis Samuel, he gets 6 or 7 targets. There's no one else. So it's McCaffrey, Moore, little Greg Olsen, little Curtis Samuel, and that's it. That's the whole offense for the Panthers. We love tight offenses like that. There's no Tommy Lee Lewis coming out of nowhere scoring touchdowns for this team.
You know what's scary is DJ Moore is only 22 years old. He's going to be going into year 3 as a 22-year-old. I think he's going to go down as this could be like the second coming of Steve Smith here.
One of the better wide receivers projected forward. He is a top 12 PPR wide receiver this season. His totals are like up there and better than guys who you drafted really, really early. He might even be ahead of DeAndre Hopkins at this point. So, what he's done this year has been spectacular. Keep on it. He was way underpriced. We were all over it for weeks. I haven't not played DJ Moore as a core play, or I haven't not had him as an all or core play on my sheet. I think in like 6 or 7 weeks. He's been there every single week. He performs. Love the play. On the Washington side, normally you want to attack Carolina with running backs. Listen, John, I'm going to do some math in my head, right? 39-point total, 19 points, 5, -5. That means like Washington's expected to score 3 points in this game.
It's, plus or minus about 12, but yes.
Yes. So basically, no scoring.
Yes.
Now, even with all of that terribleness, Taylor, the F1 McLaren fighter jet still gets a ton of targets. Like he's coming off a 12-target game. I don't doubt that he can get another 12, but I do doubt that Dwayne Haskins can deliver the football, especially with Bradbury, elite coverage coming to McLaurin. So essentially, normally you want to attack Carolina via the run. Unfortunately, Washington does not settle on a single running back. Old man Peterson is still out there doing his thing for 10, 12 touches a game. Now they got the juice in there for 10, 12 touches a game. It's not enough for anybody to make value. So fuck that. We stay away from that side, play Christian McCaffrey, and move on to the next game.
Yeah, John, last week I saw Dwayne Haskins miss McLaurin twice for what was easy touchdowns. I think that Dwayne Haskins, who was a pretty accurate quarterback at Ohio State, I love the getting Washington the points in this one. Let's move on. Another juicy bet is the Green Bay and New York Giants. Giants getting 6.5, total of 45. John, Green Bay just got embarrassed on national television. That seems to be affecting the market line a little bit. I would assume this would have been at least a touchdown. Daniel Jones, a turnover machine. Notice how I didn't call him dimes, Geek? No douche chills today. I would like to see him get back to being Danny Bitcoin once again. With from a fantasy perspective, where's the money going with this one?
It's all coming in on Green Bay, not shockingly here. So no surprise, about 90% of both the tickets and the money on the pack. I think, playing against San Francisco last week, you get a pass on that game. But they've thrown in a couple of duds in the last month here. That Charger game was terrible. They looked terrible against San Francisco. So, if you do like Green Bay, though, I would jump on that 6.5 right now, because I don't think you want to wait until it gets to 7. As far as the total goes, we're down to 45.5, opened up at 47, and I've got 69% of the cash coming in on the over side, and pretty comparable on the tickets. So pretty much in line there. So the over and Green Bay is what's being bet.
Yeah, Geek. I mean, is Saquon Barkley priced down coming off how the market perceives him? A couple bad games. Certainly hasn't lived up to his first round pedigree. See, that's what I like. I like taking these superstar players after a series of bad weeks when they're priced down. Like Saquon Barkley was the highest priced player almost every week last week. Is this the week I should jump back in?
Yeah, I definitely like jumping back on. Couple reasons. Number one, yes. So he is priced down, but did you really expect him to do really well against Chicago in a 36-point game total last week? Like, no. And the Jets in the previous week when Barkley failed, not a lot of excuses there, but the Jets have been very good against running backs. I know we all think the Jets suck, but they have been pretty good against the running back position this way. Now they get a Packers team that's pretty bad against running backs. So let's start there. I like this game from a high overall scoring perspective. Giants games seem to play to the over. John, I'd love a breakdown of like if that's been the case in terms of betting. Have they been hitting the over? So think about that as I go through. But Giants games play to high scoring games because their defense just sucks, and offensively they have not been all that bad. So from a player perspective here, sure, Saquon Barkley, okay. I like it. 7,400, cheapest he's been in a very long time. Gotta like Aaron Jones. Don't love Aaron Jones, but like Aaron Jones here. He doesn't get volume. It's important to remember it. He doesn't get volume. The game recently where he scored 27 points, 13 carries, no targets, 93 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he does not get volume, but for some reason he can explode. What that tells me is he's not a guy that I want to play in cash games because I can't count on 25 touches out of an Aaron Jones. I'd rather go up even to a shittier sort of overall player in the sense of his scoring so far this season in Barkley, because Barkley is much more likely to get me 24 to 25 touches in a positive matchup. Jamal Williams also is a lot cheaper and gets about the same number of touches per game, and quite honestly was much more heavily used in the Packers game. So he's more of the I don't understand it. Quite honest, I got no answer for that. Devontae Adams is in a unicorn golden halo situation. Oh. Do you understand? I'm doing effects.
It sounded like you were going through puberty there with their voice cracking.
Effects. This is a halo shining over my head with an angelic singing. That's what Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is going to be running around out there. You ever see like little halo over the head, like on the show? He's got superpowers or something on a video game. That's what Devontae Adams' situation is here. You cannot ask for a better spot than against the Giants secondary. They suck, right? So play Devontae Adams this week. Just do it. On the Giants side,
wait. Before I'm not letting you get away with that. Real quick, Devontae Adams, the guy was supposed to be a touchdown machine. I mean, you were banking on double-digit touchdowns. The guy has 1 touchdown on the entire year.
He's been hurt.
Yeah, but do you think? And that toe, is it fully better? I mean, this is you're all in on Devontae Adams this week. You trust that guy?
Yes. He's not carrying he doesn't have a questionable tag. This guy's been hurt all year. So, I mean, look at the target numbers. Hold up. He's 7K, almost free.
Yeah, double-digit targets is a lock. He's
7K is close to free. For 12 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, 15 targets. I mean, that's his last 4 games. He was hurt. He's coming back. He's getting better. He played against Carolina. That's Bradbury coverage. Last week it was San Francisco. Elite coverage. Now he gets the Giants, who don't have any quarterbacks. They got a couple of safeties, and they got a couple of tight ends that they throw out in their secondary.
Yeah. All right. I mean, listen, I need him in all my season long leagues, so I'm not going to argue there. You were going over to the Giants side.
You'll be fine. So that's all you got to do. Devontae Adams. I like. All right, wait. Let me get to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is priced in a weird place here, where he's a little too close to Lamar Jackson to even want to play him, because Lamar Jackson is cheat code levels, the Christian McCaffrey of quarterbacks, and if you're priced close to him, you're always going to project worse than him, right? So he's only for tournaments, 5% exposure. John will tell you, John, 5-10%. What are you doing on Aaron Rodgers this week?
I don't know. It's a little early, but I'm probably going to be over the market on Aaron Rodgers. Just looking at it. I mean, their matchups, like you said,
but you're aware that Lamar Jackson is available.
I've heard he's pretty good.
He's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah. But wait, even against San Francisco's defense, you guys like Lamar Jackson?
Matter. It does not matter.
I was thinking about benching Lamar Jackson for Kyler Murray this week in my season-long league. I will
throw you off of this show and replace you.
Well, that's why that's
somebody who's good at fantasy football.
I mean, John. You told me the other day on the Beat the Bookie podcast, no matter what the market thinks about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson this week, it's overpriced. Those were more or less your words.
Well, what I said is they're going to start getting. They're definitely going to be overpriced because everyone's just in love now with Lamar Jackson. That happened after the New England game, and we're definitely going to see it this week. Doesn't mean they're not going to cover the game, but sometimes the market is going to, or the line, I should say, or the Vegas lines are going to be a little higher than they normally would have been, but that's not even high enough. I've seen it before, but all I'm saying is the public, nobody's going to be fading Baltimore, so they know that they need to adjust that line appropriately. Again, it doesn't mean they won't cover, but they're going to be overpriced.
It's our next game.
Line aside. They actually didn't, they mispriced Lamar Jackson too low, considering what he brings to the table at this point. So if I can get Lamar Jackson, I know you don't look at the salaries, and that's where I come in, right? He's right there with all the other quarterbacks. He's at $7K, Rodgers is 6,800, or 6,500. We're not saving enough. He should be $8K, so that the reward to going to a different quarterback is significant enough to make it worth the risk of essentially taking a guy off of your team who is locked in. I don't care about he crushed the Patriots. He's locked in for 20 fantasy points, but that's the bad game. But the more likely result is 28, 35, somewhere in that range.
I don't know, man. So, I'm an original Lamar Jackson truther, okay? And I'm all for it. I just think that, first of all, the pricing was probably made before the Monday night game. Is that correct? The pricing comes out on...
That's plausible, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's likely what the problem. And yes, it would be even inflated even more. I just have more respect for this San Francisco defense, and I think Lamar Jackson still has a very high floor. But I'm just seeing the game from an anecdotal perspective, thinking that the upside could be capped a little bit. Now, of course, I could be completely wrong, but I have a lot of respect for the San Francisco defense.
I do too. I have a lot of respect for the Patriots defense. I think they're one of the best defenses I've ever seen, and yet this Ravens team is doing spectacular things. They tore them like they weren't even existing.
Patriots run defense is okay. It's okay. It's the pass defense.
It's not the same issue. You can run on San Francisco a little bit, but it's irrelevant. What the Ravens are doing right now offensively is so unusual that no matter how good your defense is, you're not designed to stop this. That doesn't mean that a playoff situation, a team coming off a bye, something where they can't prepare for it and maybe kind of do something, but in a few days prep, in a week's prep, Thanksgiving in the middle of the week, I don't see it. And I haven't seen where any team, they just destroyed the Rams, they destroyed the Patriots. They are on a wrecking path, and the Ravens have destroyed every single defense that they've encountered this year. They're running an offense that no one has really figured out an answer to. You got to ride that wave. Play Baltimore. Take the 6 points. John, no more fucking betting against.
Wait a second. Slow down right there. So Baltimore is laying the 6 points.
Yes,
right.
Yes. Lay the 6. You play Baltimore just like when the Patriots play anybody, you don't bet against them, even when the models say not to bet on them. Like the Patriots are one of those teams that no matter what your model says, you should almost always take them to cover the spread. They cover the spread more often than not. That goes back for 15 years, the whole Bill Belichick, Brady era. I see that as what's going on with this Ravens team. I'm not a sports gambler, savant. I'm not an expert in it. I'm just saying I see a pattern here.
John, I'm not. So San Francisco, that was our next game. San Francisco is going to Baltimore. Baltimore off on the short week. Off the market only has them right now at -6. The total 46.5. I think San Fran. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm not going to sell high on Baltimore because I still think they're a great team. But short week, everyone's praising them. This line was 3 before the game, and it moved to 6 after that game. I like San Francisco with the points. I'm just going to wait until Sunday night until it ticks up close to 7, and that's where my feeling is on this game. San Francisco plus a touchdown, even though it's at 6 right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you like San Francisco, that's the way to play it. Just kind of hold off and wait. The money's coming in about 2-1, almost exactly 2-1 on the Baltimore side. So I do expect you might get that line might go higher. If it does come down, you're likely seeing some sharp money that's pushing that down. So curious one, watch that line if you're interested in betting it. From a total standpoint, almost all the money's coming in on the over. And that's at 47. I'm seeing depends. It could be at 47.5, depending on where you're looking. But most of the money coming in on the over side of that game. So, yeah, I mean, we talked about it as far as Lamar. And the thing about Lamar this week is there's some pretty good quarterbacks. We talked about Rodgers. We've got Mahomes on the slate this week. So we've got some good quarterbacks out there this week. And it's not going to be as easy as last week necessarily to find that right one.
Yeah, but and John, it's that people already forgot about because it's out of sight, out of mind. Recency bias. How San Francisco took apart Green Bay. It just happened to be that this game was on Monday night, the Baltimore game, and we saw. I mean, once a season we see a game like that where there's a team that just totally dismantles piece by piece another team, and it just happened to be a Monday night with the most high-profile player, Geek. In this, I was going to ask Geek in this game though. You talked about Lamar Jackson. Anyone else, Hollywood Brown, any of those guys you're using to pair him with, or is Lamar a naked play for you?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely playable naked. I mean, that's, of course. And it's really interesting, actually, strategically, when you think about most optimizers are really not designed for naked quarterbacks in the sense of then I had this thought of like, would it be cool if I could play Lamar, but like correlate it with, other teams, like just like build around a stack, but have Lamar there, so have like, you can't do it really. Like you just can't like set up correlation in your lineup if you don't start with your quarterback most of the time, or the design of the tools are not set for that. But yes, you want to play Lamar Jackson. You could play him naked here. I don't mind it with Andrews, the tight end, even Marquise Brown. I think Marquise Brown was a little fluky last week, caught a bunch of touchdowns, but
that's what he does though.
Yeah. Not a lot of volume though. A lot of touchdowns.
He doesn't need it. He's like Deshaun Jackson plus this guy.
He needs another year. He needs a little bit of seasoning. He's going to be a special player. He's not quite there yet, but Lamar Jackson. I want to just get back to this is a cheat code quarterback. What did I mean by that? He's a running back and a quarterback all mixed into one player. It's like if you got a really good quarterback, like a really good running back, like a Leonard Fournette, and then you just added that he throws 20 passes a game. You can't. The fantasy points potential here is so good that it's just unfadable. Even in the worst situation, he's going to score 22 fantasy points because he's going to run it. He's going to get 60 yards rushing. He's going to do a normal stuff. He's going to do normal things that quarterbacks do. So a shitty quarterback game normally gets you to 15 fantasy points anyway, plus the 60 yards. He usually runs for a touchdown. There's so many ways that he scores that you just can't fade him. And by the way, I mean, yes, is San Francisco defense good? It absolutely is, but it's not going to be set up to stop this offense. Now, that said, no. Am I going back to Willie Snead? No. Don't chase that.
Hey, just so you talked about Lamar Jackson. He's the night. If you just took away just his rushing stats, he's RB9 on the year.
This is what I'm talking about, John. When I say cheat code, I'm getting 2 players for the price of 1, and not like 2 shitty players. A pretty good RB9.
Which is a number 1 running back in fantasy.
Yeah, and maybe not a QB1, but like a decent QB2. So when you add these 2 things together, it's like, it's the same thing with Christian McCaffrey. I'm paying for a wide receiver and a running back all mixed into one. Here I've got a wide receiver and I've got a running back and a quarterback. So if I combine Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey, okay, that's 2 spots on my lineup. I've only paid for 2 players. I've got 2 running backs, a quarterback, and a wide receiver. I've got 4 players. I'm getting 4 players for the price of 2.
Christian McCaffrey, just to give you perspective also, obviously he has the most rushing yards. He's RB1 on the year.
What is he,
and if
WR?
you just if you just his wide receiving stats, if he was just a wide receiver, took away all the rushing, he'd be wide receiver 38 on the year, which is just outside wide. But I mean, that's literally a playable flex player just from a wide receiver perspective.
2 players for the price of 1. All right. So again, I don't even know the rest of this game. I'm going to advise to not play anyone from the. I guess you could play Kittle, but in general, I don't like anybody on San Francisco here. Not a good spot.
The San Francisco run game hasn't been what it was early in the season.
No, they've had to throw a lot more lately. I don't know what the stats model says about. You know what? Let me look at it.
I got them way lower than they were. You know, this was one of those teams. They were like 175 every week. You know, but now that's come down after the last few weeks, and then obviously Baltimore is always going to be high in the rushing because of Lamar. But as you can see, we're not expecting Lamar to throw for a lot of yards. But again, you know, these are you got to kind of dial in. You got to look at the individual teams. Normally, you would look at that and say, well, we don't want the quarterback here. I've only got him for 124 yards. He might rush for 100 and throw for 150. And still be, with 4 or 5 touchdowns on the game. He's got that capability. So it's tough. It's the same thing with McCaffrey. Now, McCaffrey, just from a rushing standpoint, we go back to that game. I got him projected pretty high. But even when they're projected low, if I got him at about 100 yards, like you just said, he's still a wide receiver 3 in a lot. So you've got him as, even if I have him as a low rushing total, which I did last week, he's still a viable option in the passing game. And like you said, it's 2 players for the price of 1. So
10 receptions.
He's the price of 1 very expensive one, but yeah.
You watch Kyle Allen, and he only has eyes for Christian McCaffrey. Every drop back, he's looking at McCaffrey. The guy's getting 10 targets. So yeah, and here I see the 125 number, but what that's accounting for is the fact that, again, San Francisco played a bunch of shitty teams. They weren't able to execute any offense, so they didn't allow a lot of passing offense. This Ravens offense is so unorthodox. It's so unusual the way it plays out. It's so confusing for defenses that I think they get their normal 175 yards here. I think they'll exceed what the model says. I think they'll get their usual 175-ish yards, and that's all that Jackson needs to complement the 100 yards and touchdown that he runs for in this game. So no worries here. I definitely like Jackson, and I am not into the San Francisco players at all. I have not seen where teams have been playing well against. The Ravens defensively are clicking now too. That team is going to the Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, they already beat New England. I mean, but if they have, here's the problem. And John, any team that has to go into New England, and New England has the 1 seed right now, they're going to be an underdog. Or at least
there's no doubt. They'll be a dog. New England will be favored against anybody at home.
Like right now, about that. If that game was in Foxborough, Ravens at New England, what would it be, -2, something?
Yeah,
like that?
2 probably be the line. Because the Ravens, 1.5, 2. They'll figure the Ravens are slightly better on neutral ground, so they'll give the Pats the slight edge.
See, that's the key, Geek, is that New England getting home field. It's a total game changer. So, but your point is well taken.
And the hardest part, again, I just for DFS players, the hardest part about this game and with Jackson is really, like, you can't really stack him properly. Like, it's not a great stacking situation. So, usually when I'm attacking tournaments, I want to stack it. I want to create stacks with various players within the same team or game stacks. I'm definitely not game stacking that one. I don't like that approach. And even in a team stack situation between Andrews and Brown, sure, but I don't want all of my Lamar Jackson exposure. It's not a good matchup for the actual pass catching pieces that go with Lamar. This is a better game that sets up better for his running prowess. So you could just play him naked and then create a correlated lineup manually around other games that you like. So, like, for the other players in the lineup, that's where you create the correlation. So you do, hey, I throw in Jackson in here, but I like this Giants game, so let me throw in Barkley and Devontae Adams as well in this lineup to get correlation to a different game.
Yeah, no, that sounds reasonable to me. We're going to take a quick break here, guys. Talk about our friends over at Fantasy Draft, rake-free daily fantasy. Fantasy Draft, the only rake-free daily fantasy site, brings the heat again with the $250,000 guaranteed rake-free contest, the Hooters main event. This is the largest and only rake-free contest of its kind you will find for Week 13. And remember, only on Fantasy Draft, 100% of entry fees are paid to the contest winners. Sign up at fantasydraft.com with referral code ARMY, that's ARMY, and you'll get a 7 free day membership. We talk about it all the time on here. I played over there the other day at fantasydraft.com, and it really is cool because I've been playing on some of the other mainstream sites for a couple years, and you're right. It's like, even when I do a head-to-head, it's like, hey, I put up $10 and I win like 17 or 18. It's not fair. I mean, I understand it. I mean, you have to pay, but it's cool. You go on there and I have my free membership, my 7-day trial I've been using. And hey, I do a head-to-head for $10, for $20. I actually win that amount. It is a nice feeling once you start playing it.
It's also important to note, like if you only play $100 a month in action, there's no fee for the service. It's only when you pass 100 and you start playing to 1,000 or 5,000 a month in action, you pay a couple bucks a month for the service. Best thing going. I love the format on Fantasy Draft because it's only 2 wide receivers that you're forced to take. You get 2 flex spots. So if you want to load up on running backs there, you can totally do it. There are a lot of weeks where I feel supreme confidence in as many as 4 running backs, but kind of like sketchy about wide receivers. So I really like Fantasy Draft for that component as well, because I could just load up on my confident running back plays, get a couple of my turtly wide receivers in there, cheapies, because, Christian McCaffrey's in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you get them in there, and that's a really great, sharp approach to cash games. I love it, and I love not paying fees, man. I clip that coupon every time I get one.
Yeah, and our friend Cash Keg over on his show, his daily basketball show, he has been doing on Fridays. It's great. He's been building fantasy draft lineups, so that's my favorite time to tune into him on Friday at the Cash Keg, his daily fantasy show, and he takes you through the whole rake-free model and how to build optimal lineup. John, getting back to the action here. The next game I wanted to talk about was Tennessee, who actually is a good team, going into Indianapolis, who's favored. I couldn't believe it when I saw this line. I guess it makes sense. They're not getting the full 3, 2.5, total 43.5. Other than the money, I also want to hear your take on this game, and if you think that the market is undervaluing Tennessee.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, I don't love the game. These I don't know, that AFC South always kind of confuses me. Those teams always seem just so close to each other.
Except
it's
for Jacksonville.
Certainly this year, but it just seems like every year, they kind of there's so much flip flop in there, and you got to give Frank Reich a ton of credit here. You lose your quarterback, one of the great quarterbacks in the league, guy who's certainly on his way probably to a Hall of Fame career, and he's still hanging in there with the backup quarterback. So Brissett's done a good job. I like what Frank Reich's done, but yeah, Tennessee last week. They hurt me in the betting from a betting standpoint, and the market, the people are coming back on them here. The bettors are back on them at the plus 2.5 at 63%. The tickets are actually 50-50, but the money is 63%. And these tend to be games from a DFS standpoint. When we look at the total, that's the primarily what we're looking at. These Tennessee Indianapolis games are never that sexy, but the market kind of likes the over here. 87% of the money's coming in on the over. I think personally here, I don't know if I'm in love with the passing attack, but I think from a running standpoint, I think some of the running backs might be in play here. What do you think, Geek?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually a little surprised to note that, Tennessee's actually been giving up quite a few fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this year. It's not their norm. Usually Tennessee's a place where fantasy points go to die. It's because they lean on that sluggish sort of, in the past, they've leaned on that Derrick Henry sort of slow pace.
They still are. I mean, he's such an animal. I mean,
they do, but now they have a real quarterback. I think replacing Mariota allow that team to score, which requires other teams to answer.
I mean, Tannehill still has only been throwing in like the mid-20s as far as attempts. He hasn't had a ton of attempts. He's just been really efficient with them. And what's interesting? It's like, was Tannehill always good? He was just on a bad team. I mean, yes. It's crazy.
By the way, let me say this, because you got into something. I'm not going to go too far on this. I have always thought Tannehill was good. Listen, he got injured. He was on a bad team. When he was healthy, he was not some scrub. He was fine. Do I think he's a top 15? No, but I don't think he's a bottom 5. Like, he's a fine quarterback, perfectly acceptable. I never thought he was bad. I always thought he was better than Mariota. Even going into the season, I was like, I think Tannehill's the better quarterback on that team. I thought that for sure, and he definitely is. It's shown. Mariota is finished. So,
I mean,
Tannehill's
18 attempts last week, Geek. 18 attempts and 19 the week before.
He ran the football a lot,
yeah.
But he ran it a lot. And of course, it was a Derrick Henry game. We knew going in. Derrick Henry was 50% owned in the King of the Beach. Everybody was cheering. I'm like, oh shit, this ain't helping me at all. You know, you're not advancing when you got a 50% own. I thought I was getting cute, whatever. But it was a Derrick Henry game last week. All right. So looking at this game though, in terms of the teams, the most interesting player, and this is John. I actually want to run this, but like, there's never been a better looking spot for a chalk play to blow up in my face than Jonathan Williams at this point. Man, this feels like the biggest trap. I don't know why. It feels too good to be true. And when it is too good to be true, this is like when, the line, you love a fighter and everybody's talking about that fighter. Everybody wants to play him. Everybody wants what's his name, Sir Gregor Gillespie against Kevin Lee, but the line keeps getting better and better and better, and he was minus 180, now he's minus 150, now he's minus 130, and you're like, what's going on here? And then of course Lee comes in and knocks him out. Tell me the danger of playing Jonathan Williams here, because why shouldn't I just load up on this guy for 5,300 in this matchup?
Yeah, I would like to give you the danger, but I'm kind of getting the same feeling you are on this game, just because I like the run. I love the running back situation here in this game. You're getting a pretty good price. I don't know. I'm going to really have to dive into this one more, but who else is Indianapolis going to use?
I mean, they have Naeem Hines for the pass catcher.
They got Hines. He's going to catch. Yeah, he'll catch balls.
And I believe Jordan Wilkins will be involved. I know he wasn't last week, but he's actually good if you look at his efficiency stats. I think that. Listen, it's Jonathan Williams isn't one of these guys like, okay, let's play him. There's still people there. If he does another game, it's one of those things where you should probably play him, because next week everyone's going to play him. If you're thinking,
I think everyone's going to play him this week,
right? But they're going to have the same. They're going to have the same reservations. The sharp players are going to have the same thought process you just stated. Like, hey, is this for real? This guy's bounced around the league. Who knows if he's good?
I think he's talented. I just think like, there are so many paths to him getting less action than we thought. One being just, they mix in Wilkins. Another being Naeem Hines with a bigger role. It just looks so good on paper that it's actually starting to scare me. But I do predict that Jonathan Williams will be the chalk running back of this week. I expect he'll be 20 to 25% owned, maybe 30%, something like that. And, it's going to be almost like you're forced to play it in cash, and then we're going to have to see what happens in tournaments. I can't imagine. I'm trying to get McCaffrey in my lineup. I've got to pay down somewhere. That's going to be a good spot to make that happen. But I am saying, I do sense something ominous about this. I don't know. I'm just getting an ominous feeling about it.
Yeah, something John said though, I just want to circle back to. He was talking about how Frank Reich has done a good job with picking personnel and really keeping the team together. It kind of makes you think, now that the Eagles are playing poorly, that who was really making it happen over there in Philly? Was it Doug Peterson or was it Frank Reich, right?
Frank Reich has proved himself to be an elite coach.
And remember, he was their second choice. It was, Josh McDaniels who took the job and then basically forgot to pick up the prom date. Left her at the house,
Worked out well for the Colts. They really, I think he's the envy of pretty much that coach is the envy of most teams. Like unless you're the Patriots, you're probably a little envious of, any team that has Frank Reich as the head coach right now.
But to get back on Williams, so is Williams, if we assume Williams just takes on the Mac role, right? I mean, is that what we're assuming?
Well, that's
so Mac hasn't, when you look at it, Mac's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 really disappointing weeks. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 good ones. So he was kind of, and those disappointing weeks would be disappointing at the price that Williams is at as well. So
he's not getting a lot of
Miami. Yeah.
This is where I'm going with it. It's not like this is a guy who's going to get 7 targets. It's exactly what they would give to Mac, right? And Mac, what would happen is if you take Jonathan Williams' exact line from last week, right? You reduce it from 104 to 98 yards, and you take away the touchdown. All right, that's a lot, Kevin. You're fucking pushing it. But now, am I? Am I? Now you take away those 3 yards, you take away the touchdown. That's 10 points. Now he went from 24 to 14. Not as good. Not as good. So there is a downside here in the sense that we normally wouldn't play Mac at 6,300 or 5,300 would probably play Mac in this spot. That's what I'm saying. I'd play him here. But if he was 62, 6,300, I'd be like, I don't know if I like this play. Mac doesn't get a lot of passing game work. And Jonathan Williams, he's not going to get a ton of I think he can catch passes, but he's not going to get a ton of passing game work. So I just want to point that out. Like, I looked at it and it looked almost too good on paper. I'm really looking for reasons to not like it. Be that what it is. Derrick Henry at 7,600. That's a big no for me. Sorry, guys. That's a no. I get that he had a big week last week. I don't care. That's a no for me. Outside of tournaments or FanDuel, a DraftKings play, no.
He'll probably still be high owned. I mean, that game, he was just shoving defenders off him. He's such a beast.
He's that way, but he always does that to the Jaguars. Like that's his bitch. That's his bitch team, the Jaguars. He does that every time to that.
He's from Jacksonville, Derrick Henry. He went to high school here.
I know. The coach. You said you're friendly with the coach, man.
I'm not friendly. We've had him on the podcast. He's a nice guy.
Consider him a friend of the show.
Yes, there you go. I don't want to make it.
T.Y. Hilton back in the dome. Seems healthier. Played last week. Sure. 6,200. Underpriced. There's no elite cornerback on Tennessee to stop this guy. So, yes, please. I will take some T.Y. Hilton, a healthy version of him. Not a cash play generally, but I like him. AJ Brown, way too expensive for the role at this point, 5,300, jacked up after a pretty big week last week. There's nothing else of interest in this game at all. Actually, I have one more for you. Gentleman Jack Doyle at 3,300 with no Eric Ebron is definitely in play. He's underpriced for the role. John, should I load up on Jack Doyle with no Ebron to vulture away red zone looks at 3,300?
Definitely going to be one of the better plays. I don't know if loading up is going to be the way
I'm
going to go.
Loading up. You know what I mean.
But absolutely viable here.
I don't know. Everyone's talking about how Jack Doyle all of a sudden is this top 10 option. Was Ebron really hindering Jack Doyle's production?
It's not about top 10. We're balancing salary against expected production. If I want Christian McCaffrey in my lineup, if I want Michael Thomas type players, if I want Devontae Adams in all my lineups, I can't afford to pay for George Kittle at 65. I've got to pay down. So if I can get Jack Doyle at min salary for 3,300, and you can promise me that he'll see 7 or 8 targets in this game and 10 to 15 fantasy points, I'm signing up.
Yep. I could buy that. All right, moving on. Miami. John, they're laying a big number in Philly is laying a big number, 10 in Miami, total 45. Is Philly good? I know that the spreadsheets like them, that the analytics guys like them, but they don't look good to me. Carson Wentz doesn't look right, and now they're laying double digits in Miami. Call me a square, but I don't know which side I'm even on, but I like Miami in the points here.
Yeah, this game probably would have been 17 points in like week 3 or 4, but now it's 10. It's interesting. All the money's coming in on Philly. I think that people still don't buy into the fact that Miami kind of had their little run there, and I think everyone's done with them as far as betting wise. People just don't like to bet on the really bad teams in general. Philly just has not looked good. Just watching the games, they haven't looked good. I don't particularly have them rated very high in my rankings either. So, I'm not a fan of this Philly team at all. If you go to the total, we've got, and did I give you the numbers on that? It was about 90% of the money's coming in on Philly. So on the totals, 44.5 is the total. You got 72% of the money coming in on the underside. And I think that's just a byproduct of two bad teams right here. No one really has any confidence in the offenses in this game. So I can understand why we're coming in with seeing more money coming on the underside of this game. Philly, from a DFS standpoint, I've got their running number. I got the rushing totals at 157, but again, how does it break down? So, what do you got, Geek?
Man, 157. I saw it and I'm like, fuck, are you going to try to make me? Why do they keep raising the price of Miles Sanders? Like, what has he done that justifies?
He's
that
playing Miami. That's it.
I mean, every week it goes up a little more. Listen, something's off about Philly, but this is a get right situation. Couple things are changing here. Alshon Jeffrey is going to be back this week. It looks like even Nelson Jagalor. Can we call him Nelson Jagalor? He'll be back as well. Did I just make that up, or that's just what everybody calls him?
I think you made it. I think you made it up, but he's going to be a good receiver on some other team. He's an unrestricted free agent this year.
He won't. No, he won't.
I think that again, he's not going to be a tier A, but he's going to be a good wide receiver 2 or 3 on some other team next year.
Stop! You're such a draft analyst that refuses to give up the analysis you came up with. And he drops foot. He has no concentration. He goes to sports psychologist. He's got mental problems.
This is what I told someone. He has to create that separation in order to get that drop pass.
He could create separate. He has mental issues. Chuck Knobloch. He can't fucking throw to first base. What the hell does it matter? You can't
John,
throw back.
Remember Mackie Sasser couldn't throw the ball back.
He's Mackie Sasser over there, giving these all day. Molasses footed.
For people listening,
all right.
People listening on the audio cast, that was your
doing
hand.
These. I'm pounding the rock in the catcher's mitt. All right, Carson Wentz though, for all of that, there is certainly validity to playing this guy in tournaments this week. We want to, if we're getting away from Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and even some of these elite names up top, you want to find some cheapies that have a chance. Anytime a team is facing Miami, they have a chance. You saw what Baker Mayfield, who has been duty all year, did to Miami this past weekend. Miami's defense is just basically non-existent. So it should be, open. It should be open season on just putting up points. The Eagles are there. The Eagles are like a college, like a teenager that hasn't gotten laid, and there's a lot of pent up frustration. And all of a sudden, they got like a little something going on, and the explosion that happens is just disastrous. And like that's what's going to happen here with the Eagles offense.
I'm telling you, but who the hell is Philly to lay 10 points in Miami though? I don't see this game that way at all.
I'm fine with not betting on them. I don't think Miami offensively is as horrific as they're fine on off. You got Fitzpatrick. He's out there running around. He's throwing interceptions, but he's out there slinging it all the time. So, they're sloppy, but whatever. What we care about is, are the Eagles going to score and how they're going to do it? Miami's defense has not offered any resistance. So Alshon Jeffrey comes back. Let's play him in this spot, right? Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Sure. Fine. Even the disgusting Miles Sanders play is viable in this spot, because if he's ever going to do anything, it better damn well be against this Miami defense. I don't love the price, but it's certainly doable. Alshon Jeffrey, way underpriced at 5,100 for the matchup. You got to play him. And then Hearns and Parker on the other side of this game. Philly defense has not been very good. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not very good. You could play Fitzpatrick in that group. I don't love this game from a DFS perspective. I'd call it like garbage stacks for the most part, like duty stacks, garbage stacks. But some of these players are cheap. You can get them in your lineups. You can game stack this game without spending a whole lot. So that's the kind of thing I like. I can get all the action in this game and still have lots of money left over for my McCaffrey play, for my Devontae Adams play, for my other plays that I want to just have as core across all my lineups.
By the way, I want to stand by the pick of Patrick Laird last week, even though it didn't produce at all. And let me tell you why, because those type of pass catching running backs, I know you're laughing, but you're not always going to be right. But if you always bet on those type of guys, those young ascending running backs that have shown a spark and you're going to be right 60% of the time. Sure, it will fail sometimes, but I'm not mad that I recommended a player like that. I know he became like a meme and all that kind of stuff, and it was a goof on Twitter, but I stand by that when someone like that ascends, especially on a bad team where they're going to be playing catch up, that's a guy that I'm always going to bet on.
Hey, you were on him before it became a meme and before it became ridiculous.
Correct. And again, I was wrong, but I still think that that's the type of player you want to bet on.
It's just a reminder. Listen, you have to understand the difference between a speculative play and a sharp play. That's a speculative. We were
Correct.
speculating. Listen, we were having the speculation like, wow, does the coaching staff in Miami realize that Kalen Ballage sucks because we all noticed it? And it's like, no, they don't realize that.
He must have naked
trotting,
pictures of the coach or something. There's just something going on there. Like
they keep trotting him out there. Like, oh, yeah, we have Kenyon Drake, but we're going to feature Kalen Ballage. Like, Kenyon Drake leaves that team and looks electric. And nobody in the Miami organization went,
yeah. No, it was bad.
Guys, who was it that evaluated and thought Ballage was the better guy?
And two different coaches too. Two different coaches.
In my office, like what's the offensive coordinator? Like the GM of that team needs to be like, full office space. Like, Jim,
we're gonna move your office to level B.
Just be in my office.
Storage room, right, John? Storage room B.
Exactly.
Well, you do realize it's 9:02 right now, right? And we start at 9 here.
Yeah. We need you to come in on Sunday. Hey, do either of you watch Silicon Valley as well?
Yeah, I love that show.
I have not. No, I don't watch that much TV. So
John watches game film.
I watch. I literally watch. The only time I turn the TV on is sports, and then I listen to a lot of.
Do you
this
at least watch
fantasy
Game of
stuff.
Thrones?
No, I've never seen a minute of it.
All right.
I don't watch anything, man. I really don't. I'm too busy.
He's a man dedicated to his craft. Hey, guys, I've been hearing is that if you are tired of having the perfect player at every position in order to win your salary cap DFS, I have a new website for you to try. If you're tired of your salary cap lineup being out of the running, the win in the first 5 minutes, then Overlay DFS Progressive Jackpots is the website you should try. OverlayDFS.com is a new revolutionary start-sit game for fantasy sports. They're home of the 10-entry GPP. Here's how you play. Make 12 start-sit decisions from over 30 matchups they present to you. A win, a loss, or a tie will be awarded to your overall record for each decision. Records in the top 10% of users will win 9 times your buy-in, and if the stars align and you hit the perfect 12-0, you'll win their progressive jackpot. All matchups are player versus player. Who will have more total fantasy points? Usually 8-4 is good enough to cash. Sometimes 7-5. Other times it's 9-3. I'm going to bring up their screen. John, you've been playing over there a little bit. Tell me about the experiences that you've been having.
I've been loving it. I've only had one losing week over there, so I can't complain. I like it quite a bit. Oh yeah, they're going to have, I believe, just slates for tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I have it up on the screen now for those watching.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but I'm going to definitely play tomorrow. I'm
going to read you a couple names here and just tell me who you like. We'll do lightning round as always. We'll just go John first and then Geek. Prescott versus Dak. Oh, sorry. Prescott versus Josh Allen.
Yeah, I like
Dak.
Go ahead, Geek. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
are you taking Dak?
Yeah,
it's definitely Dak.
Okay. I'm surprised at that, even though Josh Allen could, he's at any point could just go off. All right. I like that. Matt Ryan versus Drew Brees. John, who do you like?
I'm going to go with Drew Brees on that.
Geek?
Yeah, definitely. Same here. You got to go Drew Brees with this one.
And the Duty Bowl, the whoever the Detroit QB is, Driscoll or Blow versus Mitch Trubisky.
Trubisky easy for me.
Yeah, you just can't go against the Chicago defense. I'm going to go with Trubisky as well.
And can you go with a guy whose name is David Blow? I mean, that is a tough one as it is. All right, guys. So OverlayDFS.com, give it a try.
Yeah,
They've been.
Let me just point out a trick to that site and to those questions, because sometimes you're looking through them and you're trying to just figure out we did lightning round. My suggestion is not to do that. My suggestion is write them down, write down the player projection for each of those guys and look for the biggest discrepancies so that you know which of the 20 to 25 questions you really should be attacking, because there are going to be situations where you have a guy who's projected for 5 or 6 points more than the other guy in that listing, and other ones where they're within a point or two. So you want to stick to the ones where there's a heavy discrepancy, where there's a very, very clear lead. And I don't think most people are doing that. John's doing that, and he's winning every fucking week. So most people are not doing that.
Yeah, and they just launched basketball. So basketball is even more fun. I mean, I love playing football there, but basketball, with every assist, with every rebound, with every turnover, the whole standings flip upside down. It's a lot of fun.
Write the projections down. That's the key to that one. Take that extra step. Don't be fucking lazy.
All right, you've said it all.
Yeah.
in one of the more interesting games this week, John, I need you to explain to me, is this recency bias that Oakland's going to go to KC? KC's laying the full 10 here, total 51. I know that I'm dismissing the no-show that Oakland had against the Jets. They're a better team than that. The early body clock last week, they didn't show up, and that does happen. What's the market say on this number?
I think it's the right line. I mean, I would have had it at 9. It's at 10. It's in that ballpark.
It is a big difference, though. 9
it is a big difference. I mean, when you get to the 10, obviously the 10's a magic number. But when we're talking, I was in the ballpark there. 9 was my line. But yeah, getting that extra point, of course, obviously advantageous. Games do and on that key number, the 10. But if we look at the market, I was anticipating most of the money coming in on Kansas City, and that's the way it is, 60-40. Not a tremendous differential, but it is coming in on the Kansas City side. If we get down to the total, and that's the one that's really interesting for the fantasy, of course, 51. And I've got 75%, 3/4 of the money coming in on the underside, believe it or not. So interesting that the market kind of they're favoring this game to the under.
I think that's happening because people think that the Raiders suck now and they're going to get smashed in this game, John.
That's
hold up their end of the bargain. Yeah,
that's definitely the. I would say that's definitely the average person out there. Their logic in this game. I mean this one could be one of those juicy DFS games. Obviously, Kansas City back in the main slate. They were out last week, so this is one we got to start looking at again.
Well, I mean, big time. Got to start. Mahomes with Reek and Mahomes without Reek is like two different players. Okay, I'm starting to learn that a lot of what looks so amazing about Pat Mahomes. Listen, the dude is awesome, but Tyreek Hill is awesome too, and that combination is explosive. So Tyreek is back. He's going to lead the teams that I figured somehow how to get into the draft.com best ball championships with Reek on the bench for most of the year. Now he's riding in on a white horse, very handsome with a knight.
He is playing.
He is playing. He's back. He was going to come back in the game 2 weeks ago anyway. He said he was fine. So expect that you'll get a healthy Tyreek Hill back here. And he's their big play explosive guy. We need 5 or 6 passing touchdowns a week for the next few weeks to catch up on our 35 over prop bet for Mahomes.
It's over, Johnny. Just like they said in First Blood, it's over, Johnny.
Oh man.
Nothing is over.
When the mush joined us, John, we had the mush join us in the bet, and I was like, "Hey, guess who joined the bet?" And he's like, "Mush," and I'm like, "Are you fucking crazy,
John? We have our own personal mush.
There's a mush, and we're like, no, Mr. Poison joined in the bet with us," and I'm like, "You motherfucker!"
So you
caused Pat Mahomes to get hurt. Now wait, let me
to explain what the bet was.
The bet was Mahomes 35 touchdowns, which was a great bet because he threw for 50 last year, and if he doesn't get hurt, he easily passes 35.
It was a bet against injury. That's what it was.
But then the mush joined the bet.
Who was the horse the mush bet on in that movie? What was the name of the horse?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a great trivia. I don't know, but
John knows it. John knows it.
Of course, I know that.
Kryptonite. Kryptonite. Very good.
Come on, Kryptonite.
Right. Come on, Kryptonite. Come on. They put him in the bathroom.
That was during the Craps game. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Great movie.
Let's break this game down. People are going to say you want to play Josh Jacobs here. Why? Because Kansas City, very bad against running backs, allowing a lot of points. Okay. I get that. But I do have concerns with Josh Jacobs because he is game flow dependent in a lot of ways. When the team goes down by a bit, they bring in Jalen Richard and that whole hurry up offense. So I'm going to caution with Josh Jacobs that is not a safe cash play, even with Kansas City. Ranking is one of the worst teams against the run. I also think Kansas City is a little bit better at home than what these numbers might indicate, right? Now, on the running back side for KC, it's a little bit weird. I don't know what's going on with Damian Williams. Questionable right now. Hasn't practiced.
Well, let me ask you this. If Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy are your only two options right now, which one would you think is even going to be the more productive fantasy guy?
The one who's playing?
Okay. Well, right. Yeah, fair enough. Like if they're both on your waiver wire in like a season-long league, which one of them you're picking up?
Neither one of these guys should be on the waiver.
Both of them are on the waiver wire in some leagues.
They are? So, I mean, I think you got if I assumed they were both healthy, I would go with Damian Williams. He's been a little bit more of the volume guy. But, I mean, you've got Darrell Williams. You can easily misclick on Darrell Williams and Damian Williams, not know who the fuck you're even playing. They both just list as D. Williams on DraftKings. It's very confusing.
That's like their one year there was another running back named Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, but why are they doing this? There's two. You know how many times people have clicked on the wrong D. Williams?
There is a Michael Thomas. There's another Michael Thomas
on the Rams
as well. Yeah,
on the Rams.
And let me tell you, when we do projections, it's not helpful. It's not helpful. There's also a quarterback named Ryan Griffin and a tight end. And of course, we always project the quarterback, Ryan Griffin, with what the tight end is supposed to have. And then we have to manually fix it. So good times, right? So anyway, Jacobs.
We were talking about the KC running game. That's when I interrupted.
KC running game. We just have to check the health status. It is a good spot for the run. We just don't know who's going to be the guy, but pay attention there. If both Williams and McCoy are out, then the other Williams, D. Williams, Darrell, is going to be a spectacular play. So let's keep an eye on that. Darrell Williams got a bunch of carries last week. Now, at wide receiver, Tyreek Hill is borderline ridiculous priced, $8,900. Like, he's never been this expensive, and all of a sudden here he is. So he becomes almost a piece that you could. I mean, how do you take him over Devontae Adams for $2K more? It's going to be very difficult. Adams will get 12 targets in his game. Tyreek Hill, probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 at best. So that is a GPP only play in stacks with Pat Mahomes. When Tyrell Williams, they're going to be throwing a lot, but they never like to throw a lot to Tyrell, but they're going to be throwing a lot. So he's an option for Oakland. And of course, Samir Watkins. Can I do that? Does this, people at home, I'm shrugging my shoulders.
Yeah, but the people that are listening, you have to make like a shrug sound effect because they
wait, I came up with a sound effect for sure.
There you go.
That's my shrugging shoulders noise. Like, okay.
That's the next level of this video cast. Yeah. We're going to get sound effects put in.
Watkins, by the way, he's coming off a string of sometimes he gets 10 targets and sometimes he gets 3. I mean, I don't know. So he's playable, but you can't play him in cash games because his targets fluctuate from 10 to 3. Okay. And that's about it for this game. The WR3 has been in flux.
Kelsey? How about Kelsey?
Kelsey, of course. I mean, the same as always. You can't pay up for Kelsey. Really, if you pay up for Kelsey, he murders your lineup if he doesn't put up a big number. So he's a tournament-only play. As much as we love Travis Kelsey, we can't have a murderer in our lineup, potentially waiting there with his knife to stab your money. I only put up 12 points for $7K, and now you're dead.
For those who are just tuning in, just at that moment, he was doing a knife.
I was doing a knife. I am stabbing your lineup and murdering it.
He wasn't masturbating an elephant.
You should hear my. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get in. You know what? No, I'm not going to talk about my description.
This has gone off the rails already. John,
and out at the club with the haram that goes from elbow to fist. I'm not going to talk anything about that.
Fair enough.
Elbow to fist.
Oh my Lord. John, Tampa Bay,
Kristoff.
Good Jameis or bad Jameis, we don't know yet. He's going to be going into Jacksonville, my hometown. Jacksonville getting the point, total 47.5. This looks like a messy game, but based on the total, it could produce some fantasy points. Where are the bettors? Are they staying away from this one? Is this a low traffic game, I would guess?
It is low traffic, but the traffic that's coming in is piling in on Tampa. So we've got over 90% of the cash, 80% of the tickets on the Tampa side. I think the amount, I'm not shocked that the public's on Tampa, just kind of surprised with the amount that we're seeing come in on the Tampa side. As far as the total, you've got the underside catching 75% of the cash. What do you have it at? 40? Yeah, I've got it. It depends on where you look in.
I pulled it at 47.5 right before we went on.
48.5 minus 120. So it's going to vary a little bit as far as where you're at, which book you have on that. But the money's coming in on the under, so we could see that drop. At least the line that I'm looking at now could drop down to 47.5. But it's Winston had a shot at. I don't think it's going to happen. He had a shot to lead the league in both touchdowns and interceptions. And I don't remember. I saw that stat the other day, and I'm not sure if it is. I don't think it's happened in any of the
but
anyone in recent times.
There was an occasion where it happened, but the name of the guy who did it was like one of these old school quarterbacks.
Exactly.
It was like Brett Favre did it too, I think.
I don't think was it Favre?
No, it was like Lucky. It was like one of those old school names, like like Chippy Jones from the 1927 Colts.
Lucky McGillicuddy.
Yeah, something like that.
from like the AFL.
You're like, the last time that happened, it was like Skip McGee from
There's a picture of Skip with his leather helmet on. Interesting enough. So Geek, last week, Leonard Fournette, man, he had one touchdown the entire year, and then literally in the second half just busts in 2 more touchdowns. We talked about that on this podcast, how many touchdowns Leonard Fournette has on the year. I went around you guys guessing. DJ Shark, top 10 wide receiver on the year. How's his pricing? Is he a guy that I can play in my DFS lineup?
Yeah, so I mean, this game, I looked at it, and your first thought is, oh, it's the Jaguars, right? But then you realize, wait a minute, this is Tampa. Okay, everybody remembers last week where we all loved the Falcons and the Tampa Bay defense is a cheat code, and it didn't work once, and now we're never going to do it again. No, we go back to what's been working, which is playing passing offenses against the Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense. I do not expect them to continue the domination that they displayed against the Falcons last week. DJ Shark is a thing. You can, all of these guys. How come D.D. Westbrook's price is up? What? He had a good game? I mean, he got 9 targets last week finally. All right, very nice. Chris Conley tends to get 9 targets a game as well. Hasn't done a ton with him. And DJ Chark is the big play guy. All of these guys are in play. All of them. Nick Foles is playable, as crazy as that sounds. I don't like Fournette this week. Obviously, no running backs have really excelled against Tampa. That trend continued. It continued last week. It just has been a thing. And so I'm just going to go with that and accept it as a thing and believe that it's real. We're already 12 games into the season. The sample size is big enough to get a pretty good understanding of it. On the flip side, Godwin, Mike Evans priced down now, Godwin priced up. Traditionally, when Mike Evans is 1,000 below Godwin, you play Evans.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they alternate weeks. I mean, why do you guys think that Jameis can't distribute the ball evenly? Is it a question that they just shift coverage over to one guy? Like, why does literally one guy go crazy and the other guy gets nothing?
You want to try? Should we question the trend? I mean, there are situations that cause it, like when Marshawn Lattimore's on Evans and they just go to the other guy. Like, so when elite cornerback play comes into play, but some defenses, like last week, the expectation was it was a better spot for Godwin. Why? Because Atlanta tries to keep everything in front of them. The way the routes that Evans runs are these sort of deep out routes, whereas Godwin's crossing a little bit more. He's doing a little bit more, sort of like he's doing a little bit more crossing, like medium patterns where Evans is going deeper. And the game set up better for Godwin last week than Evans, right? But what you see is the salaries of these players kind of fluctuate based on whoever did what the last game, which is a really stupid thing if you think about it, because over the course of a season, they're both almost equal in terms of the total yardage and all of their statistics. They should be priced the same. So when you get that discrepancy, you just almost have to just float to the cheaper one because they project the same and the cheaper guy is a little bit cheaper. So you get a little bit more value out of it. The nice thing about Tampa is they only throw to those 2 guys. We don't have to worry about any other players on the team getting targets. It's just Godwin and Evans, and that's it. Every once in a while, like they throw to the tight end or something. But for the most part, it's just Godwin's and Evans. So you're usually good for 10 to 12 targets. And I mean, if you're building a middling lineup and you start with Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Christian McCaffrey in there, and you get a bunch of cheapies all around it, 30, 60, 90, throw Lamar Jackson for another 30 points. You're at 120, and then you got to fill it in with 5 cheapies to get you to, 170 or whatever you need to cash in tournaments. So, I'm not saying to do it, but it's interesting. I do like this game for game stacks, though, more than anything else. You could really build some interesting stacks. And Jameis Winston, never sleep on him. If I'm not playing the top guys, Jameis Winston is my next favorite quarterback across the board. He's just so consistent. He throws so many times. They don't really run the football a lot. And you get 20 plus fantasy points out of him every week. He's 1,000 less than Mahomes. He's 800 less than Lamar Jackson. So basically, if I'm going away from Jackson, Mahomes, I think Jameis Winston is my favorite pay down option. Not that he's cheap enough to make me really want to do it, but you certainly have to consider taking the savings with Jameis Winston, who has been extreme consistent all season.
Yeah, he's the ultimate Winston, like boom or bust, but in tournaments, like you said,
he doesn't bust. He has no busts. He has no busts.
Okay, so bust meaning fall short of expectation, the pick at the wrong time. I mean,
I don't care about that. I don't care who wins the game. That's the thing. This is very important to note, because you don't want to bring in your consideration of winning and losing into fantasy points production. I don't care.
No, I'm saying, okay, so when you say he doesn't bust, all right, last week, obviously, at Atlanta, he had a monster game, 26 fantasy points. But the 3 weeks before that, he was under 20. The last month in a row, he was under 20. So you're right.
You're looking at a projection system that doesn't give you a 300-yard bonus. So if you look at 20? The DraftKings, I'll give you the numbers on DraftKings. Last week, 29. Week before, 22. Week before, 23.5. Week before, 24.2. Week before, 26.3. Week before that, 21.1. We've got to go all the way back to week 5 at New Orleans to when he didn't break 20 points. He got 17. But the week before that at the Rams, 33, 29 before that. So outside
what is that? So the DraftKings bonus is 3 points for 300 yards?
Yes.
Okay, so that puts him over your 20-point margin.
Yeah, that's what squeezes him up. So on DraftKings, you have the bonus all the time. He just doesn't. He hasn't busted. The first game of the season was against San Francisco. Everybody's like, "Oh, San Francisco's." People didn't realize San Francisco was a good defense. Then they had that Thursday game against Carolina. They just didn't play well. But after that, it's been a nonstop cover. He should be more expensive than 6,300 based on how consistent he's been. And I love him. And John, you could speak to this. When we're creating game stacks and team stacks, the ultimate thing with the quarterback is we want him to have consistent and a target share. Like, we want to be able to predict who he's throwing to so that when the quarterback goes off, we have a good chance of having him stack with the right guy. I mean, tell me about your Winston stacks, because don't you feel good? Like, it's one of Godwin or Evans. Like, I like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. You don't have the tight end that's taking any action away here. They don't have a running back that's really getting all the passing points. It's two guys. And what's happened a lot is, like we talked about, it's one of those two guys. So you don't necessarily want to have, and they make it kind of expensive to do, but you don't need to have both of them in the lineup. You pick one. If you're mass entering, you're going to have Winston Evans, Winston Godwin stacks, and not both. So I think that's the way you want to look at it. And I do agree with you. I like the cheaper option in general between those two, in Evans and Godwin. And this week, I actually think, despite the price, whether they were the same price or not, I would still like Evans. So getting the discount, I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, there's not many teams that have a narrow tree like that of passing options. So, sometimes, like Rams from 2 years ago, that's a bad example, because all three of those guys were fed. But it's very rare that you have literally where all the passing production goes through two guys. That's well said, guys. Well said. All right, New York Jets going to Cincinnati. QB replacement. Andy Dalton back in there. They're still going to get 3 points at home. John, has that line changed at all? You're still seeing it at +3, Cincinnati?
Yeah, still seeing 3. This is the playoff bound Jets right now. They are.
Yeah, it's I heard
about
something
to run the table.
I've heard something, interesting. It's, they were talking about how traditionally the Patriots start slow. You'd like 2-2, 3-2. And they said it's because he's experimenting with games, because he just knows he's going to win the division every year. I guess really relating it back to what you just said is that how the hell are the Jets even? It doesn't matter if they run the table or not. I mean, there's no way they're winning that division.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
God, no.
Yeah.
No, they're not winning the division.
Cincinnati getting the full 3 at home. Total 41. I think it's an interesting game, especially that Dalton's coming back. And take us through the numbers. And also, I'm curious if you think AJ Green will even come back this year now that Dalton's back.
I'll tell you, on the AJ Green front, and not because I'm a doctor, I'd heard this. I heard a doctor talking about this, and I'd love to give her the credit, but I don't remember her name. And this is before the season had started, where she was talking about the specific type of boot he was wearing, or exactly what he was wearing, and she was not optimistic just from knowing and seeing the way he looked in the preseason during training camp, that he would even be back this year. So I faded him. I didn't take him in one of my leagues at all. So I'm going to stick with that. I don't think we see him at all this year.
I know a fantasy football doctor, Dr. Says, who is very clear to not draft AJ Green as well in the preseason for this exact reason, that you're going to have a turd sitting on your bench for the whole fucking year. You're afraid to drop him, and he just hampered your team. You couldn't have a proper bench either, and you're waiting, and even if he came back this week, you got to show me for 2 weeks, and you're already out of the playoffs, and what the hell was the point?
He's a roster clogger. John just basically said he was on full fade. He's not going to clog his roster. I mean, guys like that, you just, it's too tough to wait for him. I mean, how many years I've spent learning that lesson the hard way, putting a Martavis Bryant on my bench for 5 weeks, and then it's just not working out. John, take me through the Cincinnati game. I have interest, not so much in Tyler Boyd, but in some of the other receivers. I think that Cincinnati could really light up the Jets at home and get their first win.
Certainly a possibility, and the public, as you might imagine, doesn't agree. So 3/4 of the money's coming in on the Jets side. And isn't that interesting? Because we talked, how long ago? It was a month ago when they had that Monday night game, and Darnold couldn't play. He was terrible, Then the ghost game. And I think we spoke about it here, where we're like, listen, he's not as bad as that game was. That was just a game where, it happens, and it happened on Monday night. Whenever these things happen on Monday night, and he happened to be mic'd up, which made it worse. But he's facing Belichick, and his coach didn't give him any help in that game. And we said it here, like, they're a better team than they've shown. So you just, when you're in the betting markets, you've got to find that, when is the market shifting too far one way or the other? And if you were able to figure that out after that New England game, you've done well here on the Jets side. But like I said, 3/4 of the money coming in on the Jets. And then on the total, everyone's taking the over here. 80% of the money and tickets coming in on the overs. So there could be some action in this game.
Geek, I'm about to tell you a couple names that you're going to hate, and then you could tell me why you could laugh. But
I might not hate them.
Auden Tate, Alex Erickson. Those are names that are they got to be close to min salary that I like in this game.
They are very, very cheap, and I don't hate them. Listen, both of these guys did really well, at times with Dalton at the helm. I like all of them now with Dalton at the helm. Remember, this Jets secondary, this game was salaried before we found out that Dalton was going to start. So let's just calm down. Alan, calm the fuck down. Calm down. The salaries came out before we knew that they were going to have an actual National Football League quarterback at the helm. So the Bengals' issue all season wasn't that, they can't move the football offensively through the air. They were pretty good at that. I mean, they're moving the football. They're throwing a lot of passes. They were doing that stuff. The issue was they have no defense, and they have problems with a running game and not sticking to it and all of that. But, they've been able to throw the football around. So they threw it a lot. When they fall behind, they throw like crazy. Do I love Alex Erickson as a player? No. But is he cheap and can get a bunch of targets? Yes. I like Auden Tate more. And he did get some heavy volume early in the season when Andy Dalton was at the helm. And Tyler Boyd is not expensive at $5,500 now. He's priced really well, considering, again, the Jets secondary is terrible, right? They got a really bad secondary. So, yes, I don't mind any of those things. I am not poo-pooing it. On the Jets side, we got Sammy Dimes.
Oh, terrible. Douche chills.
No, we got to come up with Sammy Jersey Shore. I need what's Ron from Jersey Shore? Sammy, she had a nickname from Jersey Shore. Sammy.
Sammy Sweetheart.
Sammy Sweetheart.
There you go. That's a good.
Did you see the New York Post? He was out until 12:30 at night on Sunday.
I'm aware of what
he does.
We don't get the mono from
12:30 at night
studying the playbook.
He was hooking up with a chick till 12:30 at night, and that became news.
Leave the guy alone. Let him.
Jeez.
He scored. They scored 4 touchdowns. Leave the guy alone.
Can you imagine what social media would have done to Joe Namath?
But P.S. He was home. He left at 12:30. John, this guy wasn't out until 4 in the morning.
12:30. That's unbelievable.
He made out with the chick. That could have been his girlfriend. Fuck the Post and their bullshit. But because of that rumor And because of my preseason discussion of him getting the mono over at DJ's on Belmar, he is now forever known as Sammy Sweetheart.
Fair enough.
Done. John's like, I don't know what Jersey Shore is, so I don't
I've
know
heard
what
of
you're
it.
talking about it.
John,
Your ass was at Jersey Shore. Trust me.
I was at the Jersey Shore many times.
These are the same places you were hanging out with. You know what happens. You drive over to Verrazano, then the Outer Bridge crossing. Next thing you know, you're at a club, and like girls with very high hair and very short skirts are talking to you, and you're just standing there like, holy shit. When I'm in New York, no girl ever spoke to me.
I actually had mono, and I don't know if I got it on the Jersey Shore, but it was after I was hanging out at the Jersey Shore.
I promise you, I know where it came from, and it wasn't when you were studying, Bible with your Christian groups on the Sunday at the Catholic school. It was at Jersey Shore.
John's pop culture references cease around 1997.
That's it. It might be a little earlier than that.
Yeah, I was
like 93. All right, so let me talk about this game. Robbie Anderson finally wakes up last week, has a decent game. You can't trust any of the Jets wide receiver options. Nobody gets enough volume to really be trusted outside of a Sam Darnold stack at this point. Jameson Crowder's price comes down a little bit. He seems to be the favored guy. Everybody's in a good spot on this defense. But you don't know who they're going to go to. It's very troubling. Ryan Griffin, salary a little too high at $4,300 for my taste. Everything about the Jet side is exclusively game stack, team stack only for me. I'm not touching these pieces as standalone because the volume just isn't really there. Who else is on this team? Running back, Le'Veon Bell, priced up for the matchup. Joe Mixon I don't like, by the way. I didn't mention him. But Le'Veon Bell priced up for the matchup. Not out there enough. Bilal Powell all of a sudden is part of the game plan. I don't know what the fuck is going on. This is like bad coaching happening right before our eyes. If your best player is Le'Veon Bell, feed him the rock. I don't understand it. I tried to call Woody Johnson, have a conversation about what's going on with this team. They told me, leave a message that we don't know who you are and we're calling the Secret Service. So I don't know. What's going on. Can't trust Le'Veon Bell for $7,200. That's it.
Is he still a good player? I mean, he looks pretty good to me. Yeah.
It's not him. It's us.
Yeah.
It's not him.
You. It's not you. It's me.
It's not you.
The Costanza.
If I'm Jets and you're Le'Veon Bell, it's not you. It's me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to use you properly. I'm sorry.
Somebody should make to the Jets an offer they can't refuse for the next year. Take that money off their books. The LA Rams, John, didn't even look like a real football team on Monday night, but they're going into Arizona off the bye. Arizona getting the full 3 at home. Total 47.5. This is probably my best bet of the week. I think that the Rams were shook. They did not look good to me. Goff, it just looks really bad. I know it's a buy low moment on the Rams, but I think Kyler Murray, just by the numbers, looks like a really good NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be a star. What does the market think about this game? I'm really curious.
Yeah, it kind of feels like two teams going in different directions. You got I don't know what kind of idiot would have bet the Rams on Monday, but I was one.
Never speak of it. Never speak of that.
I was one of them, but
all the sharp bettors were on the Rams. It's a
lot of sharps. Yeah, it took the Rams, but
because the line moved at the end.
The sharps will look very foolish sometimes because they'll take games that just like that where the public really thinks the other side looks good.
What's the difference if you lose by 1 point or by 40 points? I don't think there's a difference.
It was about an hour and a half worth of sleep for me because I was able to pack that one in early. So
you know what the difference is? It's much like when you pick a fighter in a fight and they get absolutely decimated and their ass is whipped like for 3 full rounds and just completely dominated. And it's just like, oh my God, my take was really off. Like I feel a lot better like with a backdoor cover where, San Francisco picks up the ball at the last and runs one in last week.
It's the friendliest loss thing.
In the last place.
It's like Jason Garrett in that game last week against the Patriots, kicking the field goal. It's like that sealed the loss. It just prolonged it a little bit more. It's the friendliest loss theory.
But it's just tough. Again, a play like that where your team just gets smashed in that way, you go, wow, I really read that game wrong. Or my model, whatever it is. And hey, that's what goes on. But you mentally adjust. And like you said, I think you have to ignore models when it comes to the Patriots and the Rams and the Ravens right now because they're just not able to pick up on the fact that these teams are like they do things that are just unusual and special.
John, did you finish out talking about the?
No, I didn't even get on it. But
Okay.
Outside of the Washington Carolina game, this is the least bet game so far this week, and it's pretty much 50-50 with more tickets coming in on the Arizona side. So the higher ticket average is on the Rams side. The total's 47, and almost everyone on the money side is coming in on the over, and we're getting about a 70-30 split ticket-wise in favor of the over. So 95% of the money over, 70% of the money, or 70% of the tickets on the over. So the over seems to be the sharp side of this game.
Yeah, and that means there's going to be points scored. And this is hearkening back to something I asked you earlier, Geek. I have a decision where I have Lamar Jackson facing that really tough defense, but I'm thinking about playing Kyler Murray in what I think is is a get right game for for the offense. Talk to me a little bit about the players. Can you play Kyler Murray at all? And I know you disagree with that decision, but take me through the players that you want me to play in Arizona and DFS.
I don't like the salary for Kyler Murray. You could play him. He's playable in DFS and as part of game stacks. I like this game is very game stackable. No one really wants to mess with the Rams after what just happened to them. But, they're a better team than what they looked like last week. And Arizona defense is not an imposing defense by any stretch. As a matter of fact, they're the worst defense in terms of allowing fantasy points to the quarterback position. They allow the most. So as disgusting as it is and it feels, Jared Goff is absolutely playable here. His stack pieces are cheap, even if there are a few too many of them to really feel confident in any one of them individually. But certainly the group of Cooks, Woods, and Cooper Kupp as a block should have a good game as a group. Expect two of them to produce and one of them to disappoint. We don't know which one the disappointment will be, but the only thing that Arizona really has going on in their secondary is Patrick Peterson. He's a pretty good player. I don't think he'll be on Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp plays out of the slot, so he'll be on one of Cooks or Woods. My guess would be Woods. Maybe. I don't know.
Woods did all right last week, though. I mean, he saved his day.
Fine. Listen, he did fine. Even last week, he did fine. You generally expect that some of these guys, one or two of them will have a good game. It's hard to know which one, but that one or two of them will have a good game. Woods and Cooks are priced down really low. They're both very, very affordable. They're both very nice tournament plays. I'm sure, like John, when you're running your 150, you get your 10-15% exposure to each of these guys because one of them is probably going to go off, but you probably don't want them all in the same game together without Jared Goff at the helm. Now, as far as the Arizona side goes, Christian Kirk is their best guy. The big question, and I don't know the answer to it, is if Jalen last week I was like, for the showdown, I was like, listen, Jalen Ramsey's going to be on Marquise Brown, so that's not a great spot for Brown. Of course, our optimizer wanted to jam Marquise Brown in 78% of my lineups, and I had to stop that and put a max of 20 on him because he was such a value compared to his price point. But I'm like, Jalen Ramsey, you don't really want wide receivers against Jalen Ramsey. And then, of course, he proceeds to go and catch 2 touchdowns, not do a whole lot of everything else. But I was like, you fucking suck at analyzing games, Geek. No, you said not to play very much Marquise Brown. But, the play was sound. And
hey, but you told him to play a little bit. You told him to play a little bit.
Of course.
So you were right.
You don't go zero.
That's how you answer it. So I was right.
Yeah, there it is. So you don't go zero. But like I said, Christian Kirk has been spectacular lately. Like, he is the sole focal point of this offense, and it's a really beautiful thing. So, 10 targets a couple weeks ago, 40 fantasy points. Even last week against San Francisco in an impossible matchup, he got 9 targets, 6 receptions, did just fine. So Christian Kirk is the focal point of the Arizona passing attack, and you definitely want some exposure there. My other player that I love, not like, I heart you, Kenyon Drake. Love him. Okay, hey. Kenyon Drake looks electric in this offense. They throw to him a ton. He's the guy who's out there. David Johnson looks like a complete turd. So,
John, Geek and I were saying offline that David Johnson, it wouldn't surprise us if he becomes a healthy scratch this week with Chase Edmonds coming back.
Yeah, that's a possibility. He has not looked good, like you said. I'm with you. I'm with you on the Kenyon Drake. I'm jumping on that bandwagon as well.
Will you do the I Heart Youth?
I won't.
Don't make him do that. No. You'll ruin John's reputation.
Only I have to make myself look ridiculous in front of people. No one else will do that.
listen, there's a
I heart you, Kenyon Drake.
I'm more the straight man, and
Right. Yeah.
If he did it though, how funny to see John doing that. That would be hilarious. That would make my whole day.
This makes me happy because the chickens are really coming home to roost. I was scoriated for my preseason ranking of Kenyon Drake as RB13. I mean, from 2 weeks ago to the end of the season, that's probably a good bet for him to finish as a top 14, 13 back, right?
Listen, you were wrong. Accept it. He got traded.
No, but I mean, I wasn't wrong.
No, you're right. He's a good player, and there's absolutely no logic to starting Kylan Balaj ahead of him, and yet Miami's just a fucked up team that did that. That's not your fault. But all right, continuing on though on the breakdown, Kenyon Drake's probably my favorite player in this entire game. Todd Gurley, sure, he's not going to get game flowed out of this one the way he did last week. So Todd Gurley, who is the entire rushing offense, he's not the old Gurley, but he's not priced like the old Gurley. He's priced like below Le'Veon Bell. He's priced below a terrible matchup for Leonard Fournette. He's priced way below Derrick Henry, who doesn't have passing game work. Todd Gurley's in a good spot. Kenyon Drake's in a good spot. Like them both. Wide receiver wise, you can always choose one of the Rams guys. This is a fun game to stack. Again, we have a few game targets to target stacks. It's going to be hard to pull the trigger on Jared Goff, but when it feels hard to pull the trigger, that's when you want to pull the trigger. That's when you want to be like, all right, everybody's going to let everybody go to these other guys. I'll have some of this, and if this works, I'm going to have some uniqueness. I don't think it's going to be high owned. With Kyler Murray, again, if you have seasons long set aside, if Lamar Jackson's on your team, just play Lamar Jackson. But if he's not, yeah, play Kyler Murray. He's in a good spot this week. Like, I'll play Kyler Murray over Russell Wilson this week. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. And I still think I'm going to go Kyler over Lamar Jackson. Moving on, guys. We got 2 more games to go.
You'll
here,
have so many regrets, man.
Join the list of regrets. I mean, if you're going to be a Bear, be a Grizzly, right? If you have one, have them all. Okay. The LA Chargers off the bye, going to Denver. Denver getting the full 3. Totals 38.5. Is that line changed since they announced Drew Lock is going to be the starter?
Was that announced? I thought it was the possibility.
I will check as I'm talking to you. It looked pretty official to me. I think there's a market assumption at very minimum. But yeah, take us through. Are you showing the same line that I just announced?
So I've got 2.5 and 38.5.
Okay,
it's 3 in some spots as well. So it's pretty much hasn't changed.
Okay, so it says speaking. Here's the headline. Speaking Wednesday, GM John Elway said Drew Lock and Brandon Allen will split practice reps this week, and the Broncos will decide a starter on Friday.
What a shitstorm that is. What?
I mean, why not just play the guy, right?
I mean, if you're gonna do it, what's the point of? That's crazy.
He's starting.
John, yeah, I mean, what's so? I mean, does that move the line for like Denver's +3?
The fact that I'm not seeing that game come off the board means that there's not going to be much difference in either quarterback, which makes sense. So it's very rare that you have a quarterback decision up in the air and you don't see a game come off the board. But that would just lead me to believe that they're not looking to move that game much, depending on which quarterback starts. Yeah. So as far as the money now, lost that page. Let me get back to that. If I could find it.
So yeah, you were talking. You're showing it at 2.5. I have it Denver +3, total 38.5. Where's the money? Right. I mean, my first instinct would be the Chargers, but in Denver is always a tough place to play.
Denver's always, someone said that, and I looked at that earlier in the year. That's one of those things. Whenever I hear things said like that, yeah, I want to go. I always want to go back and look and see if that was true. And I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but against the spread, they actually have not been that good. And I think, and that makes sense because you always hear, hey, having to go up to Mile High, that's a tough place to play.
Players have reported that, anecdotal reports, like players said, hey, I wasn't prepared for the thin air. Like you've heard.
And it's not that it's not true, but sometimes I think the line they over-adjust the line and give them a little bit too much of a home field advantage because of it.
Or it's baked into the line already, and then you're adding it in. You're saying, hey, it's a tough place to play, but that's already baked into the line.
Correct. So yeah, whenever I hear those sort of comments, those anecdotal comments, I like to go back and and see, is it true? Does defense win championships? And I'll just go and do a ton of research on it, because you'll hear color commentators and analysts, they'll throw a lot of those numbers out, and I'll make note of it. I'm like, he's just saying that like he doesn't know. I do it too.
In all fairness, these guys have to fill time.
And that's the point. And that's what I was just going to say. When you do this, sometimes you throw some cliches out there, and because you just don't, off the top of your head, you don't have all the stats. But I go back and I always, it's one of my pet peeves. I'll go back and say, "Oh, is that really true? Did he say that because he's got some data?" But I don't mean to pick on you there, Alan. But that's it's curious that you said that because I heard that before, and then I went back and I looked at Denver, and they're not necessarily a team that covers a lot at home.
I don't necessarily feel picked on. What I'm saying, and again, yes, if it's tough to play, I'm not necessarily talking about covering against the spread, but I think that the market thinks of Denver as a league doormat, or especially since they've had quarterback problems. And traditionally at home, and the line would account for this, is that, people think, hey, Chargers, good team, Denver, bad team. Hey, I'm just taking the Chargers. But Denver is not, and on neutral field, maybe this game is a little bit more even, but you go into Denver, the teams in general play better at home. And Denver, again, anecdotally, sure, with the mile high thing and all that, but travel time, would you say, is probably more of an issue when you talk about like teams with a home advantage?
What they've studied statistically, I think I mentioned this before, is it's actually it doesn't, that East Coast to West Coast move doesn't all that much. It doesn't do much except during the night games. It actually does affect teams a little bit more at night. But the early games, it hasn't had as big an effect on.
So, and why do you think that is?
It's the body clock thing, like you said, right? So you wind up, you're just normally, you ever go out, you ever day drink, and then I'm sure you guys have.
Not me.
You day drink, you could, if you go out drinking at the pool.
I was day drinking earlier today.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like you were. No, but if you go out and day drink, like it seems like you could just drink all day and like not get, like if you drank for 4 or 5 straight hours starting at noon, assuming that it's somewhat moderation, you feel fine, and I at least I know I do, and but you do the same thing from like 7 o'clock to midnight. You start feeling it by the time, because you're also adding in that getting tired, and that's also been proven as well. They've done studies on that, the drinking in the daytime and drinking at night. But it's just what happens to your body clock. You get a little bit more tired. You're not as alert at night. So teams, actually, West Coast teams, have done better in night games.
Okay, so so you wrapped up on this one, LA Chargers at Denver?
Well, just to give you the money, I don't believe I gave you where the money's coming in. As you might expect, then what you were guessing, 80% of the cash coming in on the Charger side of that game. And as far as the total goes, it's almost all coming in. 90% of the money's coming in on the under. Again, makes sense, just strictly based on the quarterback situation with Denver.
All right, Geek. You and I talked about Courtland Sutton as being a possibility as a late first-round pick in dynasty startup drafts. We really like him as one of the future stars of the league. With the quarterback change here, are you in on any of the Denver players? Then take me through the Chargers side as well.
No, I don't care for the pass catchers on the Denver side. I don't know Drew Lock. I don't know if he's good. I don't know who he is or what his story is. The Chargers do have an elite defender in Cam Hayward, who is going to be on Courtland. No. Yeah, he's going to be on Courtland Sutton in this game. So, reduces the possibility of Courtland having a great game. The mystery of the quarterback situation doesn't help me, although it's hard to believe he'd be a lot worse than Brandon Allen or whoever was the quarterback before, but whatever. On the Chargers side, you have Keenan Allen. You have kind of a weird, too many players, too many mouths to feed situation going on over there. Keenan Allen will see Chris Harris in coverage. I don't like that. Mike Williams, sure, very playable here in this spot. That's the guy who should benefit from Keenan Allen being taken out of the game a little bit. And of course, Hunter Henry is always in a good spot for this Chargers team. Always like Hunter Henry. The guy who I'm interested in, again, it's Noah Fant has been fantastic.
Fantastic.
Pause for yes. I John hates it when I do that.
What you hate when he pauses?
He wants to pull through the screen and wring the neck and shut up, Kevin.
He hates when you do these nicknames, or he hates when you pause.
Just the pause, the nick.
I actually wish the pauses were longer sometimes.
Yeah, the listeners
30 minutes.
The listeners hate when you pause.
They don't like the pauses. Fantastic. All right, so Noah Fant has been really good for the most part. 10-target game the other week. He's when I say really good, he is a significant part of this passing offense. But again, with Drew Lock and a 38-point total, fuck this game. I'm not touching anything. Let's just be real here. I'm not touching anything about this game. The only thing that interests me here is Chargers defense, because if a rookie quarterback is playing some guy who sucks, then some guy who's garbage is playing the game, then I want the defense that's opposing it. Chargers defense is a pretty good defense. As a matter of fact, I think I have them on benches of some of my season-long teams. I'll be inserting them into the starting lineup. That's it. Don't fuck around with this game. 38-point total. There's nothing to see here. Move on. Right. Even with Gordon and the running, no. Denver's defense is actually pretty good against the running back. Screw that. No, don't want this game.
So you're not touching anything on the Chargers side either. You don't like Hunter Henry.
No, it's not a good spot for Henry. I mean, Henry's playable, but he's expensive, and who the hell wants to pay $6,000 for this guy when again, he's going to murder your lineups if he doesn't have a big game. It's not a good defense to attack with running backs with tight ends. So it's just not worth it to pay up for a Hunter Henry in a 37-point game total spot on the road against the defense, against a team that's not going to be scoring. So it's just going to be all defense. They're not going to have to push the pedal to the metal. I don't like it. I don't like anything about this game. Stay away.
All right. Fair enough. All right, guys. We made it to the last one. Here we go. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Duck Hodges at the helm here, John. Pittsburgh's getting 2 points. They're underdogs at home, which I didn't fully understand. Total of 39. Take me through it a little bit.
Yeah, they're underdogs at home because everybody likes Cleveland. Cleveland is catching 3/4 of the cash and tickets. As far as the total goes, we're seeing this one bet heavily to the underside, and quite a bit of action on this game. Surprisingly, I guess Pittsburgh is kind of a big public team, but yeah, we're getting a lot of money coming in on the under, 90% of it under the 38.5. And of course, that's with Cleveland's offense not looking all that great this year. You've got new quarterback now for Pittsburgh, so I guess I kind of understand why the money's coming in here on the under.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me the way you do it. This is, again, another one of my favorite bets for the week. I certainly like Pittsburgh at home. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing gets to 2.5, and that's when I might pounce on the half-point buy. I know that's a sucker's play. Geek, Duck Hodges. Are you staying away from the passing options based on this guy? I mean, when Mike Tomlin, when they asked him, why are you going with Duck Hodges? And he said, well, he's just not killing us. I mean, slap to the face of Mason Rudolph, sure. But Duck Hodges' first play in, he threw that long pass to James Washington. Is he worth a DFS play? Washington.
Yeah, no, probably not. It's not a good spot. Cleveland does have a pretty good secondary. They have a couple of good cornerbacks, a couple good corners on their team. Sure, if you want to take a shot with a Deontay Johnson or a James Washington, I guess it's okay. But no. This game is just like the previous one. 39-point total. Neither team is going to be able to score. Pittsburgh defense is very good at home. I don't want to mess with Cleveland here at all. Could Jarvis Landry have a good game? Cleveland has a much better group of players that they're coming in with. I mean, if we're just judging based on the talent of the players, Cleveland's coming in with talented players at every position. They've underperformed this year, but they have talent all over the place. Pittsburgh completely undermanned at this point. It's a mash unit of just horrible disaster over there. But Pittsburgh defense continues to play well. They're very aggressive. They sack the quarterback. They get turnovers. So it's not a great spot. If you have to play players from this game, you want them to come from the Cleveland side. I don't really want much to do with this game at all, but I'm not chasing Jarvis Landry's big week against Miami. This is a different kind of a defense. I'm just not on the Chubb bandwagon for his salary based on what he's bringing to the table without the passing game usage. I ain't paying no $6,000 for Kareem Hunt. What the fuck is that salary all about? So there's nothing about this game that's kind of fitting into a situation where I have an interest in playing it. I'm very comfortable fading the entire thing. Even both defenses, maybe Cleveland defense, but they don't have their best players. So it really leaves me with nothing. Do we think we'll see a repeat of the brawl? I say no.
I mean, you're talking about as far as the helmet whacking.
Like, who is going to grab Duck Hodges' helmet and smash him in the head in this game? Is it going to be?
Well, what I was thinking is that when Mason Rudolph got benched, I saw it on Twitter is that they said Myles Garrett should have tweeted like, aha, just like really trolled him.
Just like to mess with him some more. That'll help him get unsuspended.
Yeah. All right, guys, we did it again. That's another week 13 of the Geeks Vegas lines. At Statsational, John Alicia, tell us what you're working on, where they could find you, all the Beat the Bookie stuff.
Yeah, head on over to Beat the Bookie over at the DFS Army website. You can go up in the upper right-hand corner there, find us at Beat the Bookie, sign up, get into our Slack chats. And we got a lot of interesting stuff going on in Slack. We're talking all sorts of sports in full swing now, college basketball, the NBA, NHL, and of course, NFL and college football. We got the bowl season coming up. So a lot going on. If you're interested in betting on these games, get on over there. You can chat with me, Ryan, Anthony, the three coaches, and sharpen your edge in these sports.
And John likes when you ask him questions about anything, cooking recipes, old school movies, anything. Take up as much time as you can as possible.
I have nothing else to do. So yes, exactly. I'm not busy at all.
Don't ask John about TV shows. He doesn't watch
any TV shows outside of like the early 90s.
Yeah. And I also urge people to check out the Beat the Bookie podcast. John just recorded one. It was the psychology of losing, what you do and how to get out of a rut when you are on a cold streak. It happens to everyone. It happens to the best. It happens to anyone who's just getting into betting. So it's a really interesting podcast. I urge you all to go to the DFS Army podcast feed and download that one at Beat the Bookie. Geek, at F Football Geek, tell us what you're working on right now and where they could all find you.
Well, a couple of important notes. So we're recording this. It's Wednesday. Thanksgiving slate is tomorrow. I recorded a very special Players Club VIP, but open to the public podcast earlier today. It's on the DFS Army YouTube page. So if you've already liked and subscribed to this channel, click on the channel. Look for the video that came out before. I break down the entire Thanksgiving Day slate in depth, more than an hour. There was some pauses. There were some sly humor in there. You'll enjoy it. Again, remember, like and subscribe to this channel. We've got all our sports going really, really strong right now in DFS Army. NBA has been just spectacular to start the season. We're going to keep that going. Obviously, we're going to keep that going. So if you want to get signed up as a DFS Army VIP subscriber, go to dfsarmy.com and sign up as a VIP for the daily fantasy side. And there was a fellow in the Facebook chat here asking if we offer lineups for week 13. Now, we don't offer lineups. We're not a lineup seller. We are not scammers. There are lots of those. You can find those guys on Twitter. They're happy to take your money. But we have a breakdown sheet. We have podcasts. We have an optimizer. We can generate lineups. We're going to teach you how to build a cash lineup and a tournament lineup, how to actually play DFS. But if you want picks for this weekend, sign up at Beat the Bookie, and you will get some picks for the weekend in terms of sports betting picks. And
then I was just going to add one other plug. Tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you can see the founder-in-chief, the Geek, and myself will be participating in yet another Thanksgiving Day draft live against our friends over at the Flex Network. So we will be competing in a 3 versus 3 6-person draft. So tune into that. Go check out the Flex Network on their podcast stream on YouTube as well, and you will see us there. We'll tweet it out to all the members so you can follow along and tell us how bad our picks are.
There it is. Turkey Day. I think you guys should all do these as well. Grab your season-long fantasy football buddies and just create your own little contest for tomorrow. Make it fun to watch the games.
Have you ever done one of those, like a Thanksgiving-only day draft?
I have not.
Yeah.
This is new to me.
Yeah, we're going to have to get him involved. You know,
we should use the draft.com app. I mean, they have these little best ball leagues.
Well, here's the issue.
Set up.
Yes. And again, it's not even best ball. It's just a one-day draft. It's kind of like a DFS play. But Yeah, and there's a 30-second timer on those. I think the fun thing is having like either doing it over a video cast or or having a slow draft and doing it with your friends. So if you haven't done one of these, get 4-6 people. You do 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 receivers, and a flex, tight end, kicker, defense. And then you have a little extra stake in the game watching the games.
Works for me.
Yep.
I'm plan to crush you, take your money as usual.
Yeah, well, if one of you guys maybe how about a side bet?
Unlike
between
which one
us
of us?
two.
Just between the two of you guys.
I'm down. You want to throw an extra? Want to throw an extra twin?
Well, I was thinking that just like this punishable by death only for the loser.
No, does it have to be murder? What do we have to go to a duel?
Yeah, I would say we go a 20 spot. Whoever has more total fantasy points at the end of the day.
That's fair because in a duel, much like Alexander Hamilton, I'd shoot up in the air. I'm trying to be a gentleman, and I don't.
How about Alan? You can't shave your head for a week.
Ooh.
And Geek, you have to shave your head.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. I'll have the fire talk.
If you saw the misshaped egg I've got going on under this hat, that's the last thing. There's very little hair left, and I want to appreciate it while it's here.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. The good-looking guy making hair jokes. Yeah.
Until I have the new stuff implanted, I like to enjoy what's there for now, and then eventually we'll reseed it, we'll regrow it. It's like like a crop out there. By next year, I'll be looking like John.
Removed from your back and implanted on your head.
I absolutely saw a Groupon for a local hair place. I was like, $100 for $1,000. I like that clip. Yeah.
I've done the Groupon hair removal for the back thing. Don't use Groupon. Find a good place. Trust me.
You're saying if the place is on Groupon, no, it's already not good.
In general, that's you'll profit by thinking that way over time.
I once went to I've gone to a couple restaurants on a Groupon over my lifetime, and it's the most consistent thing I've ever experienced in my life of horribleness.
Yeah, you remember in The Sopranos, Artie Bucco with the Groupon?
Yeah. Once you've given out Groupons for your restaurant, you've already given up. Yeah. That's like going out of the house in sweatpants. I give up. And all right, sadly, fellas, I go out of the house in sweatpants all the time.
We did it again. We made the listeners suffer through an hour and 50 minutes. This is always one of my favorite 2 hours of the week. I appreciate it, guys, and I will see you back. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. Super quick, lightning round, though. What are we doing for Thanksgiving? John, what are you doing for Thanksgiving this year?
Man, it's crazy. I will not be with my family up in New York for the first time ever, so I do have some family down here who I will be seeing, but I'm actually going to be late to dinner because I'm going to be taking care of all my DFS stuff in some peace, and then I'll be heading out later to go visit family.
Do you have to stick around and like modify lineups after the first game? Like, are you messing with your lineups and doing swaps and shit like that?
Last year, if you recall that, there was Traquan Smith or somebody was out for New Orleans in the late game.
Yes.
And this was before we had access. I don't think anyone was doing the late swaps as far as the tool back then. It was fairly new. And I had about 900 lineups that I had to go through on Excel. So that was fun doing it with my little nieces and nephews. Good part of, well, not that one. We didn't win that one, but I did win I did win the showdown that night. So yeah, but manually adjusting those lineups was not fun.
Geek, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I'm getting together with family. I'm pretty close by, so we'll have a good day. I'll be watching the games all day. I always try to check in with my DFS Army family during these games, and but no, I do not play the showdowns, except for maybe the late one, just because for that reason, John. I don't want to get stuck, with a player swap or some shit that I got to deal with. And usually when I'm doing mass multi-entry on the Turkey Bowl, if it's one player, we just hope that nothing super surprising happens, so we don't kind of get screwed. But I remember that year, and I had a lot of us were in that same situation. I have recollection of that scenario.
All right, guys.
How about you? Cooking up turkey?
I'm not a big turkey guy. I don't really like turkey. I like red meat a little bit better. But, if the turkey's done correctly, it's juicy, but it's very rare. It's very not that often that it's made perfectly. So I'm not a huge turkey guy, but I will eat some just for to when in Rome.
You got to brine it, man. You got to brine the turkey.
Oh, you're looking to
make the best. My brother makes the best.
You got to fry the turkey. I think you got to fry
the fried turkey's awesome also.
Yeah, I've had that one time myself. All right,
James
boys.
Wrestler's asking if we help with picks. Yes, we help with picks. Yes, that's what we do.
Okay. All All right, guys.
Very good.
Well done. For all of you listening on the public feed, go check out dfsarmy.com. Join with a VIP subscription. Use promo code GEEK. Use StatSational. Use SAYS. Come over there and tell all your friends about it. We'd love to have you. Love to help you. Until next week, everybody, may all your lineups be profitable.